Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to QnA, the show where I take your questions from the internet, mainly on YouTube, but the internet in total. Well, I mean, I guess it has to be on the internet if it's on YouTube. So, yeah, I'm taking the questions from the internet. That's what I've decided on. And we're going to take your questions from the internet and YouTube, okay. But also, we're going to be talking a lot of questions here. So, let's just kind of jump into it. And our first question is from Randy Moy, who says, "Hey Q, with the D-line initial keepers we have, do you think we might see Clowney or in the interior or Miles more?" Sorry about that. First of all, Randy, I'm going to have to send you for spelling Miles' name without the Y. There is no such thing as Miles without the Y in Cleveland. We only spell it with the Y. I don't care what context of Miles we're talking about. All Miles are with Ys now. But, yeah, when it comes to the D-line initial keepers, look, I think they think Jordan Elliott and Taven Bryant are fine. I think Jordan Elliott's fine. I think Taven Bryant's okay. And I've been more so impressed with what Jordan Elliott's done in the preseason than like Taven Bryant. But I think this is the thinking with the defensive line from what I can surmise from everything I've heard. It would appear to me that the Browns strategy is, hey, we're not going to have the toughest interior line, but we're also not going to rely on a lot of interior pressure and interior pressure to stop the run or to get to the quarterback, right? So the thinking here is, hey, if you want to run the ball, whether it's up the middle or off the edge, you're going to have to run the ball at Clowney or Miles. Do you want to do that? Make less efficient plays and run it straight to Miles or Clowney, put them in the game. Teams might not want to do that. Also, here's the thing. When teams want to triple team Myles Garrett, or triple or double team Jadeveon Clowney, which they're probably going to double Miles a lot. When teams have such a key on a player like Myles Garrett, it really does free in the interior defensive line, because not only are those guys getting one-on-ones, but the priority of the offensive line is shifted to the edge. So things just open up for the interior guys. I think they think they're fine. If they want interior pressure for a couple of plays, they'll put Miles on the inside or Clowney on the inside. But I don't see it becoming a staple of the defense where, they're taking a significant portion of snaps in the interior during the season. I think they keep him out there on the edge, especially Miles, because Miles, you want him to have more space, even though he can obviously win in the interior. Clowney, he wins inside shoulder anyway, so it doesn't really matter where he lines up. It's more of a weight thing, right? You want to make sure he's at the proper weight to get the advantage. Ramon Clark with the next question here, who says, do you think all the people saying Schwartz should be cut are overreacting? I don't think people are overreacting. I think people are reacting to what they're seeing. And I think when people say they want to cut Anthony Schwartz, what they're really saying is, we don't want to see Anthony Schwartz be a critical part of this football team. Right. I don't think that necessarily means he needs to be cut, even though cutting him would be the way to guarantee that. I don't think that's the way to go with it, even though, I'm almost there, right? But I think with Anthony Schwartz, what people are really saying, when they say cut Anthony Schwartz is, hey, we just don't want Anthony Schwartz to play a critical role in this team. And one has to ask the question, if somebody is not desired to play a critical role on the team currently, what are they doing on the team? That's a question they have to answer, the front office. But that's where Anthony Schwartz is, and it's an awkward place to be in. The algorithm says, what's more likely, Chubb with 1,800 plus yards or Garrett with 26 sacks? Okay. I think Chubb easily with 1,800 yards is much more likely. If Garrett gets 26 sacks, he would not just break the sack record. That would absolutely demolish the sack record. If Chubb gets 1,800 yards, that's not even a single season rushing record, right? That's a really good year. But like Miles getting 26 sacks, that's historic. If he does, by the way, Myles Garrett going to be in the Hall of Fame, just off that strength of that season alone. But let's put in the next question from ChrisB, who says, What's the impact? What impact will cutting Rochelle have on the team? From Twitter, it seems like this year's a wash now. Is it true? Man, I was aware that Isaac Rochelle was on TikTok, and look, I'm not one of these people who are going to be angry because somebody has a TikTok. I think TikTok's fine. I use TikTok. I don't follow his stuff on TikTok, so I don't know what his content's like. Apparently, there's a lot of people who are fans of his stuff, and I can understand if you're a fan of Isaac Rochelle's TikTok and he gets cut. You're going to take it hard. The truth is that he's an edge of the roster player. He's going to get cut from teams. He's going to be put on a lot of practice squads. He might get elevated to the 53-man roster for the Browns this year. He might get cut again. And that's just the life of somebody who's in the position Isaac Rochelle is. Again, when somebody has a famous following, no matter what it is, like imagine, for example, I am not an NFL caliber athlete by any stretch of the imagination. Like there is no way you can even like I can even convince myself of it. But if I were on the Browns for whatever reason and then I got cut, a lot of people would be mad because they watch my stuff, they're fans of my stuff, and they don't like that I got cut, regardless of whether it made sense or not, right? Like that's just kind of what happened with Isaac Rochelle, is that his fans got mad. And that is what it is, right? Like that's just how this goes. He's back on the team now. It's a absolute nothing burger. But let's go to the next question from Tim, who says, do you trust Stefanski can scheme his wide receivers open and put Brissett in a position to throw to open receivers? There's this stat that's been going around for a while now, percentage of open wide receivers on every play. And Baker Mayfield and the Browns were second last year in that. So the question of whether Stefanski can scheme open wide receivers, he's done it for 2 years straight. The question is not about, is Kevin Stefanski good at his job, in my opinion. I think Kevin's excellent at his job. The question is, are the quarterbacks that Kevin has started the season out with good enough to take advantage? 1 year it was with Baker. Another year it wasn't. We'll see what happens with Jacoby Brissett. And then obviously with Deshaun Watson down the line. But I think that question's been answered. I mean, Kevin's been here. This is going into his third year. Both years he's had a high percentage of open wide receivers schemed up. That's just a fact. So that's not a question for Kevin. It's more of a question for the quarterbacks that he's had. Next question comes from Brian, who says, has your expectations for the season changed any since the start of the preseason? No, not really. I've kind of been sitting at 9 to 11 wins this whole time. And that's still where I'm at. I think they're probably 9 to 11 wins. I think the floor for this team's about 8 wins. Nothing I saw in the preseason made me want to jump from that up or down. It's been a pretty nothing off preseason. And look, again, I want to repeat this because I feel like we're going to be with Kevin Stefanski for a while here now. He could get fired next year. That could change. But all the tea leaves are indicating that this is a very long-term plan, right? Deshaun Watson came here specifically because he liked Kevin Stefanski. Deshaun has a 5-year guaranteed deal. Kevin's probably going to be here for a very long time. We need to start understanding that some coaches, preseason is very important. Some coaches don't really care that much about the preseason games. I think Kevin's more on the extreme end of the don't care about the preseason games. So we have to be careful with conclusions that we draw from the offseason programs and from preseason because Kevin's secretive. He doesn't like to give out a lot of information, and he does not put his starters out there. So just a note going forward for everybody, be careful with how many conclusions we draw from the preseason under Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, because these are both guys who don't really see value in preseason football, just from how they've handled it the last couple of years. The next question comes from Zach, who says, if Brissett is struggling, do you think they'll give Dobbs a shot to start and see what he can do? I would love Dobbs to take down the Steelers week 3. I think people have been looking at this wrong. I think people are looking at this as Brissett, then Dobbs. I think this is Brissett and Dobbs. What do I mean by that? I don't think it's going to be like a 2-quarterback system. I don't think it's going to be anything extreme like that. But I think Dobbs is on the roster to run some plays. that are more mobile that Brissett just can't run, right? When you need 3 running threats plus a passing threat in the backfield, just put Dobbs out there, right? When you need more precise throwing, when you need game management, all the stuff that Brissett brings, you'll have Brissett out there. This is more Brissett and Dobbs than it is Brissett versus Dobbs. And I don't think one gets benched for the other. I think they're a pair in itself, and they'll be out there. They're not going to split reps, but I think Dobbs will have some packages in the upcoming season. The next question comes from Gavin, who asks, hey, Q, do you think Jordan Elliott might have a really good year this year? Myles Garrett seems to think so. I do. I really do. I think Jordan Elliott, he's really impressed me. If you've watched this channel for any period of time, I ain't been on the Jordan Elliott train for a while here. I mean, I've almost never been on this train, but I've been impressed with what I've seen from Jordan Elliott. He's gained a lot of weight. He looks like he finally has the strength he needs. With that strength and weight, it looks like his quickness is finally a factor. He looks good. He looks good. Does he look like he's going to be like an all-pro or Pro Bowl level? No, but he does look like a starting level, respectable defensive tackle. Hats off to him, because it was looking real bad for him the last couple of years. Now, again, it's preseason. You got to take it with a grain of salt, but I feel encouraged with what I've seen out of Jordan Elliott, given that he was one of the worst defensive tackles in all of football last year. This is a surprise. He's making a significant leap. So I feel like Jordan's going to be fine. Big year, I don't know, because he's not going to play a big stat position. But I think if we end the year and go, hey, Jordan Elliott can start for this team, let's extend him. Modest extension. That's a huge one for Jordan Elliott. The next question comes from Greg, who says, hey, Q, are the penalties simply a result of mixing and matching pieces of a team who are on the field in preseason, or is it deeper than that and possibly attributed to the team-wide lack of discipline? Seems like a relative problem last week. One thing to watch, right? Because that's what I can't determine in the preseason. How much of these penalties are, it's the preseason, I'm getting used to going live, and it's the preseason, let me try some new stuff, right? Because that's a lot of what penalties in the preseason are people just trying new things and seeing what they can get away with. Which, if that's what these penalties are, it's not going to transfer to the regular season. We'll see, right? That's the only thing I can say. We'll see what happens going forward, right? Because if the penalties show up in week 1, then it wasn't people trying new stuff. It was just them not being focused for whatever reason. And that points to a real problem. Whomever is responsible for that needs to be fixed. And it's probably going to fall on coaches, because that's who people blame for that kind of thing. But that is it for this week's Q&A. I want to thank you all for asking these questions. I want to make sure you guys have a great Labor Day weekend. If you're not subscribed, be subscribed. There's going to be a ton of content coming out there in the season. A lot of live streams, a lot of fun. Also, make sure you check out the Patreon, because that's always fun to get your name down on the bottom of the screen. But again, guys, thank you for watching. You guys have a great day. Have a good night.